When Maria turned her stepdaughter Elena into a goat, the whole village called her evil. But the shocking truth behind her desperate magic would change everything, and reveal a mother's love that knew no bounds. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The morning mist clung to the cobblestones of San Miguel village as Elena Vasquez stumbled through the square on 4 hooves, her human voice trapped inside a goat's body. The villagers crossed themselves and whispered prayers as she passed, their faces filled with fear and disgust. Bruja, they hissed. Witch. But they weren't talking about Elena. They were talking about her stepmother, Maria Santos, who sat alone in her small house at the edge of town, tears streaming down her weathered face as she watched her stepdaughter through the window. What the villagers didn't know, what Elena herself didn't know, was that Maria's heart was breaking more than anyone else's. 3 years earlier, Elena's father, Carlos Vasquez, had brought Maria home as his new wife. Elena was 15 then, beautiful and spirited, with long dark hair and eyes like starlight. She had been the light of her father's life since her mother died when Elena was just 5 years old. Maria was different from Elena's mother in every way. Where Elena's mother had been gentle and soft-spoken, Maria was strong and practical. Where Elena's mother had been wealthy and refined, Maria was poor and worked with her hands. She grew herbs, made medicines, and helped deliver babies in the village. Some people whispered that Maria was a curandera, a healer who used old magic. Others said she was something darker. But Carlos loved her fierce spirit and kind heart, and after 10 years of raising Elena alone, he was ready for companionship. Elena, however, was not ready for a stepmother. "She's trying to replace my mother," Elena told her friend Carmen as they walked to the market. "Look at this ugly dress she made me. My mother would never have dressed me like a peasant." Maria had indeed made Elena a simple brown dress from sturdy cloth. What Elena didn't know was that Maria had spent her last savings on the fabric and worked by candlelight for 3 nights to finish it, hoping to show her new stepdaughter that she cared. "Elena Mija," Carlos said gently one evening, "Maria is trying to be good to you. She made your favorite tamales tonight." "I don't want her food," Elena snapped. "I want my real mother back." Maria, standing in the doorway of the kitchen, heard every word. But instead of anger, her eyes filled with understanding. She remembered being 15 and angry at the world. As months passed, Elena's resentment toward Maria grew stronger. She refused to eat Maria's cooking, ignored her attempts at conversation, and told everyone in the village that her stepmother was cruel and unloving. The truth was the opposite. Maria tried everything to connect with Elena. She braided wildflowers for her hair, taught her to identify healing herbs, and shared stories of her own difficult childhood. But Elena's heart remained closed. "Why do you keep trying?" Carlos asked Maria one night after Elena had publicly embarrassed her at the church festival. "Maybe it's hopeless." "Because she's hurting," Maria replied, mixing herbs for a sleeping tea. "When people hurt, they sometimes hurt others. But underneath all that anger is a little girl who misses her mother." What Maria didn't tell Carlos was that she had begun to notice something troubling about Elena. The girl was growing more beautiful each day, but there was something unnatural about it. Her skin glowed too brightly, her eyes held an otherworldly light, and strange things happened around her. Flowers bloomed out of season when Elena walked by. Animals followed her as if enchanted. Men, even married men, stared at her with vacant expressions, forgetting their wives and families. Maria recognized the signs. She had seen them once before long ago. On Elena's 18th birthday, the supernatural effects around her became impossible to ignore. The baker forgot to go home to his wife and children, standing outside Elena's window all night. The priest stumbled over his words during Mass because he couldn't stop looking at her. Even her own father began acting strangely, bringing Elena gifts and treating her more like a beloved daughter than ever before. That night, Maria sat alone in her herb garden, consulting an old book her grandmother had left her. The pages were yellow with age, written in a mixture of Spanish and indigenous languages that few people could still read. There, in faded ink, she found what she was looking for: El Maleficio de la Belleza Maldita, the curse of damned beauty. According to the book, some children born under specific astrological conditions could be cursed with supernatural beauty that would grow stronger as they aged. By their 18th birthday, their allure would become so powerful that it would destroy everyone around them. Men would abandon their families, women would be driven mad with jealousy, and entire communities would collapse into chaos, all because no one could resist the cursed person's unnatural charm. The only way to break the curse was through sacrifice. Someone who truly loved the cursed person had to willingly take on terrible guilt and isolation to save them and everyone else. Maria's hands shook as she read the final passage. The curse can only be broken by transforming the afflicted into an animal form until the power burns itself out. This transformation must be performed by one who loves them unconditionally, knowing they will be forever branded as evil for their act of salvation. The next morning, Elena's supernatural beauty reached its peak. The mailman walked into a tree while staring at her. The butcher's wife attacked another woman she thought was looking at Elena. 3 different young men got into a fist fight over who would carry Elena's basket. Carlos came home from work early, his eyes glazed and strange. "Elena, mi amor," he said, "you are the most beautiful creature I have ever seen. More beautiful than your mother, more beautiful than any woman alive." Maria felt sick. The curse was affecting even Carlos, Elena's own father. That evening, as Elena slept, Maria sat beside her bed with tears streaming down her face. The girl looked peaceful in sleep, her supernatural glow dimmed but still visible. "I'm sorry, Mija," Maria whispered. "I'm so sorry for what I have to do. Someday I hope you'll understand." She opened her grandmother's book and began to read the transformation spell. The words felt like poison in her mouth, but she forced herself to continue. As she spoke, Elena's form began to shimmer and change. By morning, where a beautiful young woman had lain, there was only a small brown goat with sad, intelligent eyes. The transformation worked exactly as the book had predicted. Within hours, the supernatural effects began to fade. The baker went home to his wife. The priest's sermons returned to normal. The fighting in the marketplace stopped. But the cost to Maria was immediate and devastating. "Monster!" Elena's father screamed when he found his daughter gone and only a goat in her place. The curse's effect on him had broken, but his grief was real. "What have you done to my Elena?" "I saved her," Maria said simply, though her heart was breaking. "And I saved all of you." But Carlos couldn't understand. In his mind, his evil stepmother had murdered his beloved daughter out of jealousy. He threw Maria out of their house that very day. The villagers were equally convinced of Maria's guilt. They had no memory of their own strange behavior. The curse had wiped those memories clean. All they knew was that Elena had vanished and Maria was the obvious suspect. "Witch!" they shouted when she walked through town. "Child killer!" Children threw stones at her. Former friends crossed the street to avoid her. The priest refused to give her communion. Maria moved into a tiny shack at the edge of town and took in washing to survive. Every day she watched from her window as Elena, still in goat form, wandered the village, confused and frightened. Elena, trapped in her animal body, couldn't understand what had happened to her. She remembered being human, but those memories felt distant and dreamlike. What was real was the constant fear and confusion of her new existence. At first, she tried to approach her father, but Carlos chased her away with a stick, thinking she was just a stray goat reminding him of his lost daughter. The other villagers ignored her or shooed her away from their gardens. She was hungry, lonely, and lost. The only person who showed her any kindness was the woman everyone called a witch, Maria. Every morning, Maria left fresh water and food outside her shack. When Elena was sick, Maria brought her medicine. When storms came, Maria opened her door and let the little goat sleep by her fire. Elena didn't understand why this woman, whom everyone said was evil, was the only one who cared for her. But she found herself drawn to Maria's quiet kindness. Sometimes, late at night, Elena would catch Maria crying. The woman would stroke the goat's fur and whisper, "I'm sorry, Mija. I'm so sorry. But you're safe now. Everyone is safe." As months passed, Elena began to remember more of her human life. She remembered her anger toward Maria, her cruel words, her stubborn refusal to accept love. But she also began to remember other things. The way men had stared at her with vacant eyes. The way her own father had looked at her strangely in those final days. The fights that broke out wherever she went. And she remembered Maria's constant attempts to connect, the patient love that Elena had thrown back in her stepmother's face. One evening, as Maria sat reading by candlelight, Elena managed to focus all her concentration and speak a single word in her human voice. "Why?" Maria looked up, startled. Through the goat's eyes, she saw a flicker of Elena's human consciousness. "Because I love you," Maria said simply. "Even if you hate me forever, even if the whole world thinks I'm a monster, I couldn't let you destroy yourself and everyone around you." "Destroy?" Elena managed to say. Maria pulled out her grandmother's book and read Elena the passage about the curse. As she spoke, Elena's memories became clearer. She remembered the unnatural way people acted around her, the chaos that followed in her wake. You saved me, Elena whispered. I saved everyone, Maria said sadly. But I lost you in the process. And I lost everything else too. 2 years into Elena's transformation, the curse finally began to weaken. The supernatural beauty that had possessed her was burning itself out, just as the book had predicted. But the process was dangerous. Elena began to have seizures, shifting partially between goat and human form. Sometimes she would stand on 2 legs with human hands but a goat's head. Other times she would speak with a human voice from a fully animal body. The villagers, seeing these disturbing transformations, became convinced that Maria was torturing the poor animal with dark magic. We have to stop her, Carlos said to a group of men at the cantina. That witch is practicing evil magic right in our village. They came for Maria on a moonless night, carrying torches and ropes. Witch, they shouted. Give us the spell to undo what you've done. There is no spell to undo it, Maria said calmly, though she was terrified. It has to burn itself out naturally. Elena is almost free. Liar. Carlos grabbed her roughly. You killed my daughter and now you're torturing this poor animal. Tell us how to bring Elena back. I am Elena. The voice came from the goat, clear and unmistakably human. The animal stood on its hind legs and for a moment Elena's human face flickered over the goat's features. The villagers gasped and stepped back. With enormous effort, Elena managed to hold her human form long enough to tell her story. She explained about the supernatural beauty, the chaos it caused, the way it affected even her own father. I remember now, she said, tears streaming down her face as she flickered between human and goat. I remember the way people acted around me. It wasn't natural. It wasn't love, it was a curse. She turned to Maria, who stood surrounded by the mob with dignity despite her fear. You gave up everything to save me, Elena said. Your home, your husband, your reputation. Everyone in this village hates you because of what you did for me. Carlos stared at his daughter in shock. Elena? Is it really you? Yes, Papa. And Maria is not evil. She's the bravest, most loving woman I've ever known. She sacrificed everything to break a curse that would have destroyed our entire village. The transformation flickered again and Elena was back in goat form. But her human voice remained. Maria read her grandmother's book every night, looking for another way. She tried herbs, prayers, everything she could think of. The transformation was the only option that would save everyone. As dawn broke over the village, Elena felt the last of the supernatural curse leave her body. The transformation began to reverse, but slowly and painfully. Maria knelt beside her, holding her hand as Elena shifted between forms. I'm sorry, Elena whispered. I'm sorry for hating you, for being cruel, for never giving you a chance. Shoo Mija, Maria said gently. You were just a child who missed her mother. I understood. But you're my mother too, Elena said. You're the mother who saved me. The final transformation was the most painful of all. Elena's body stretched and changed, bones cracking and reforming. But when it was over, she stood before them fully human again, beautiful but with a natural, gentle beauty that drew people in instead of enslaving them. The supernatural glow was gone forever. The villagers, seeing Elena restored and understanding the truth, fell to their knees before Maria. Forgive us, the priest said. We called you evil when you were performing the greatest act of love. You sacrificed everything, Carlos said, tears in his eyes. Your marriage, your home, your reputation, all to save my daughter and our village. Maria helped Elena to her feet, supporting her weak legs. A mother does what she must, Maria said simply. Even when it costs her everything. Elena threw her arms around Maria. Mama, she said. My real mama. The village worked together to rebuild Maria's reputation and her life. They built her a new house, larger than before, where she could practice her healing arts without fear. Carlos begged Maria to forgive him and take him back. It took time, but eventually their love proved stronger than the pain of the past 3 years. Elena never left Maria's side again. She learned the healing arts, helped with the herb garden, and became known throughout the region as a young woman of extraordinary kindness and wisdom. People came from far and wide to hear the story of the stepmother who loved her daughter so much that she was willing to be called evil to save her. True love, Elena would tell visitors, isn't always gentle. Sometimes it means making the hardest choice of all, doing what's right even when everyone thinks you're wrong. 10 years after the curse was broken, Elena married a kind young man from the next village. At the wedding, she asked Maria to stand beside her father as her mother. You gave me 2 lives, Elena said as Maria helped her with her wedding dress. The life you saved and the life you taught me to live. Maria, now gray-haired but still strong, smiled. And you gave me the greatest gift of all, a daughter who chose to love me back. As Elena walked down the aisle, the whole village watched with tears in their eyes. They all remembered the lesson they had learned, that love sometimes wears the mask of cruelty, and the greatest heroes are often the ones we mistake for villains. The stepmother who had turned her daughter into a goat had become the most beloved woman in the village, not despite her actions but because of them. And Elena, beautiful in a way that came from within, lived happily ever after with the knowledge that she had been loved enough to be saved, no matter the cost.